This is the Minnesota Youth Alive podcast, where we talk about empowering the church to reach students at their school and in their community. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Hey guys, welcome to the Minnesota Youth Alive podcast. I'm here with Leah Fleetwood and Chris Ramsey. It is morning and we're excited that they could join us. We're going to talk about See You at the Pole because it's September. See You at the Pole is coming up. And so we have a lot of things going on. I just want to start with you guys introducing yourselves because not everyone knows the great Chris Ramsey, right?
Hey, I don't know about that.
Not everyone knows the awesome Leah Fleetwood. So go ahead, Chris, start with you. Introduce yourself a little bit. Tell students who you are.
I'm Chris Ramsey. I have been youth pastoring now just over 5 years at Casino Assembly of God Church in Pillager, Minnesota, one of the oldest AG churches that was started in Minnesota.
That's awesome.
We're like 101 years old.
Wow.
In September.
In September?
Yeah, in September like 22nd.
Are you guys going to have a big celebration?
We had a big 100-year celebration, so
yeah,
we got to wait another 100 years before we have another big celebration. But
and you've been youth pastoring for how long?
I've been youth pastoring for just over 5 years now. So.
Wow. And you grew up in the area too?
Yes, I grew up in the Brainerd Lakes area, went to Heartland Ministry College for 2 years, 2016, 2017, and started youth pastoring at 19 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. For just a little, just 1 month. But yeah, I was 19 years old, started youth pastoring, and now I just turned 25 and
awesome.
Still going. Trying to, anyways.
Trying to at 25. You got it.
Yeah. Trying.
Okay, Leah, tell us who you are.
Well, I'm Leah Fleetwood. I'm a senior in Cherry High School. I'm from Hibbing, Minnesota, really small town. I attend ALC Youth. I guess I've been going to youth group for 3 years, and I just started on the Youth Alive team, and I love it.
That's awesome. PSEO student.
Yes, ma'am.
So you go to college where then?
I go to college at Minnesota North, which is technically a bunch of different campuses combined into one.
Awesome. And this year for See You at the Pole, for our podcast, we wanted to do something a little bit different. In the past, we've kind of pulled adults to kind of encourage students and give them ideas of what to do, how to organize, things to think about. But we wanted to pull a student's perspective in because you're one of them. So maybe you see things that us as adults don't see, or you have encouraging words. I know that we as adults don't have the weight of those words. Okay, See You at the Pole is coming up. September 27th is the Wednesday. You could do it any day that week. It is September 1st. Leah, what would you say for students who are wanting to organize this, plan this, just jumping in the game, have been doing it, maybe thinking about it for a while? What would you say are some things that they need to start doing right now to organize it?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, See You at the Pole is just an amazing opportunity. There's just so much power in meeting as a group, a body of believers, especially when we're our age, and just praying over our schools. Like, God can do so much through that. So a couple pieces of advice that I think I would bring would be just get a group of friends together, because one, you're empowering that group of friends themselves, and two, it'll make it easier for planning things and walking that out. And then also, like, promotion is such a huge thing. Like, it's super uncomfortable, but to be able to step outside of your comfort zone and say, okay, God, I'm going to be obedient in this, and I'm going to spread the gospel in something as simple as inviting somebody to the flagpole on a Wednesday morning. Okay, so build a team, get some people to help you out and show up with you. That's awesome. I love that. And promoting, you know what? I just know this. Chris, you could probably attest, is that there's been See You at the Pole happening at a school, and kids are like, what? This has never happened at my school before. And you're like, actually, it did happen last year.
Yeah.
So what would you say about that for promoting?
I think from what I've seen, a lot of it's word of mouth. Like, if you are willing to go out and share with somebody and say, hey, do you want to come to this thing tomorrow morning at 7:30 or whatever time you're starting? Like, you could post all the stuff you want on social media and on your story, and like, it might help, but unless you go and talk to somebody and say, like, hey, would you want to come and do this? Like, that's what I found works best in terms of getting somebody to walk out and actually show up at 7:30 and pray at the pole. So
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that personal invite is huge because it means like I personally am asking you to come tomorrow morning. And I think that has a little more weight than like seeing someone's post on Facebook, even though that's an awesome thing to catch some other people. Okay, so Chris, from a youth pastor's perspective, how many See You at the Polls have you been at?
I have been attending See You at the Pole since I was a little boy. So I had 2 older brothers, and we've been doing See You at the Pole at Pillager High School for as long as I can remember. So I've basically been at every See You at the Pole since I was in 4th or 3rd grade or something like that.
I love that. I love that. So what would you say would be some things to add to that as far as organizing it and putting it together?
I think the big thing is if you need to organize with the staff at the school too. And I think it's important to kind of bring them in and let them know, hey, like we're going to be doing this thing. And some places maybe aren't so open towards it, but more than likely they're going to be okay with you showing up and saying, hey, we're going to do this thing. And I think involving the staff as a whole, the school staff, like principal, high school principal, middle school principal, it's going to help you in the long run because you're going to build a relationship with them. And that maybe opens the door for Bible studies or FCA or whatever other thing you're trying to get started at the school. Like from my perspective as a youth pastor, when I tell a student like, hey, are you guys kind of doing this? The first thing I do is challenge them, like, hey, go talk to the principal.
Yeah.
And it's scary. It's not very fun. And you're like, this is really uncomfortable. But I think it helps you in your walk a little bit because you get stretched and like you have to do something that you don't want to do to really grow, I feel like. So
that's good. So Leah, you've met with principals before, right? I'm sure students, whenever I sit down with students and we're playing student people, they're like, do I have to meet with someone? I'm like, yeah, you probably should meet with your principal. So explain, like, what does that look like? What has your experience been? You can even share one of your own stories if you have a situation, but what does that look like when a student goes in? Do they just walk in? How do they organize that? What do they say? What do they present?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I led my first See You at the Pole, I led it on my college campus. I had learned that we had not held a See You at the Pole in a very, very long time. And God kind of broke my heart for the college and the kids that were there. So I started with that of just going to a trusted advisor that I had at the campus. It was the first step. It was just making that connection. And then they were able to point me in the direction of our administrator. And honestly, just sending an email to your administrator, just saying like, hey, I'd love to meet with you and discuss this. What is a good time to meet up? Making that connection with your administrator is super, super important because that's going to be the only way that you're going to be able to reach them and the school. Finding a time to meet up with them and just being approachable. You don't want to just walk in there and be like, I'm doing this. You want to get on board with them and make a plan together.
It's interesting on how like you send an email, like that can be daunting as just to write an email to a principal. But just to walk in there and have confidence and share like, this is something I have. I know, Chris, you could probably share with us too, but I think as a student going out and talking to a principal, you have so much more power in that than us as adult outsiders do. And so sometimes students are like, can I have a youth pastor come with me? And I just really encourage them, do it on your own. Because this is you making a stand for your faith. It is a student-led event. So we meet with the principal, we build a team, kind of make a game plan. So Chris, you've been at See You at the Polls forever. What does a normal kind of See You at the Pole look like?
For us, I'll just talk from my experience. What we've always done is there's another youth group that's right in the city. So we kind of team up together and the youth pastor will maybe communicate with their youth pastor and say, hey, what do you want to help bring? And we do coffee, we do donuts, we do like a full meal almost for breakfast.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome.
Like, hey, do you have anybody that can maybe lead worship? Do you have some student leaders that could maybe lead prayer and kind of point us and give us direction as we're there? Mm-hmm. And so,
and what does your role as a youth pastor look like during See You at the Pole when it's happening?
When it's happening, I step back. I try not to do anything. Like I help bring tables. I bring milk, chocolate milk, hot chocolate, whatever. Like I kind of bring as much stuff as I can to kind of help make it a fun event. And it's like, it's easier for me to go and grab and I have the resources to go do it. And so I usually remove myself as much as possible. I'll maybe give direction when I feel like direction is needed, but oftentimes it's like, this is you guys and this is your mission field. I'm here to minister to you as a youth pastor, but you guys are to go out and do it.
Cool.
And it gives an opportunity for the students to feel like this is something that I have ownership in. And if I just walked in and took over and I could maybe do it better, but how does that help anybody?
Exactly.
Right? You have to be able to pass off some leadership skills and some things and kind of test the students a little bit.
Yeah.
And I like making them uncomfortable. So it's like, yeah, if you're a little like, I don't feel so comfortable in this. Ooh, sorry. Like, that's good for you. Yeah.
I love how you said, maybe I could do it better, but the thing is that it's learning how to do leadership. Like Chris and I could probably just say, we are the leadership skills we have today. Not that we're amazing leaders, but we have what we have because someone said, okay, I'm going to push you out there and make you lead on your own.
Yeah.
And maybe stumble a little bit, maybe feel a little uncomfortable, but then you're growing so much more. And it's cool to see students from one year to the next to the next. So is this your second year leading CU at the Pole, Leah?
Yes, this will be my second time leading CU at the Pole.
Okay, so what do your CU at the Poles look like?
So ours last year, it was kind of basic just because it was our first year, but like Chris said, we definitely did the donuts and coffee thing because, we all know the way to a teenager's heart is through their stomach. So we spent a lot
Just any person in general.
We spent a lot of time just promoting, and then the morning of, got there early, tried to get set up, and then we just had a very basic time of prayer and a small devotional, and then just a time of fellowship. I really wanted to do an emphasis on the prayer and fellowship, especially just so these college students could have an opportunity to just make community with one another and just establish that. So.
Okay, explain what that looked like. You said emphasis on prayer and community. So what did that look like for you in your CU at the Pole?
Yeah, so we had a bunch of different prayer prompts, I guess you would call them, just things that we could pray about, our schools, our administrators, our world, our leaders, things like that. And then we also just had a time of open prayer requests and a time where if a kid felt led to pray, that they could just pray. And that we could pray for one another, which I think is super, super important.
Chris mentioned worship at his. Worship didn't take place at yours.
We did not. This year, I think that'll be an area that we try to step into. But
cool.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: if you have no one that can do worship, and you really want worship, you can sing a cappella. You know what I mean? You can make it happen if you want to make it happen. But also, if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world to not have worship.
Exactly.
Right? So I as you see you at the Pole at camp, you see, and it's like 400 or 500 students, and sometimes we have amps and guitars, and we have cajones, and we have keyboards, and some weeks we have like one acoustic. We've done CU at the Pole at camp, and it's been just a cappella. And here's the thing: you got to choose what works for you. What strengths do you have? If you don't have anyone that can lead worship doesn't have to be there. And so just figure out what that looks like for you guys. When it comes to prayer prompts, you guys have both mentioned this. What are some big prompts that you feel like have been impactful for students? Some ones that you have maybe included or put in, or for those students who are saying like, what do I pray about at my school?
I would say there's all the generic ones, like your friends, the staff, the teachers, the faculty, the coaches, like superintendent, school board. Like you can get into every facet of what the school is. And so I think, there's so many different things you could choose, and you could kind of go on forever.
Definitely, like the generic ones are super, super important, and they set a really good baseline. I think another thing that challenges students is to really pray for like their enemies, or like the people that may have hurt them, or also like their leaders, like our president and our people in office. Like that can be a challenging concept for a lot of teenagers and young adults. So like pushing them into that area promotes growth, and also just like opening a time of just prayer, like for whatever may be needed, without maybe a prompt or without a guideline, just a time where they can just speak freely.
Yeah. I love it when students talk about the needs of their school. When it's not just there are the generics that are really powerful. I think it's so important to pray for the administration of your school. And that's not a fun prayer. It's not like the most like, oh, this is just on my heart. That's not for not everyone feels that way. But it's so important to be praying for teachers. It's so important to be praying for people. But I also love it when students say, here's a need that we're facing in our school. Like suicide has been an issue these past couple of years, or, we've had a lot of broken families. We have a lot of families that are lower income and struggling to make ends meet in their household, or the demographics of our community, things like that. I think those are really, really powerful pieces to include. So I love what you guys said. Take it where God leads you to take it. Pray for things that are the needs around you, and make sure you cover different areas throughout your school. Pray for your sports teams, pray for different areas like that. When you have an athlete that comes up and there's a bunch of non-athletes praying for an athlete, I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. Right? And so, Leah, I just want to talk to you real quick. We've ran through a lot of the basics of the organizing of things, and we have so much more for our students on our app that they can download to get more information. But you're leading something a little unique this year. Last year, you led at your college. This year, you're leading at multiple locations. So just explain to the listeners what that looks like.
Yeah, so See You at the Pole is something that has been huge on my heart the last couple of years. Since doing it at camp for the first time 2 years ago, I kind of just fell in love with it. I love how God gets to work through that. So after last year, I had been praying about it, and I kind of felt God say, well, let's make this bigger. Let's go further. So I actually have friends on 3 different campuses right now. My high school campus, my college campus that I'm on, and then also the college campus in the town right next door. So the goal this year is I want to be in a place where I can equip them to go and lead their own See You at the Poles. That it would be, we can all meet together, we can plan them together, but that hopefully by doing this, we would have 3 See You at the Poles on the Iron Range or in that area. So
I love that. All right. So question for you is, you're in your senior year, right? Looking back, what do you wish, or what do you look back and would have an encouraging word for students who are 8th graders, freshmen, sophomore, just maybe doing their first See You at the Pole, or even I don't even know if I should do See You at the Pole. What would you encourage them with?
It is super, super scary to step outside of that comfort zone. I'm a huge introvert, so I get it. It is crazy scary, but being obedient to what God is calling you and taking that step of faith, even though you may get a no, you may crash and burn, but you know what? God uses that. Yeah. So just being obedient in that and trying just to take that one step of faith, because every step that you take is one step closer to Jesus and one step more in the plan that he's laid out for you.
Okay, Chris, what would your encouragement be for students out there?
I mean, just, you got to do it. Just go and do it. I mean, you kind of mentioned earlier how how you can kind of set up hey, we're going to pass this on to the next person. And I have seen personally someone who is really passionate about their faith, who's pressing in, and they start a Bible study when they're young, and they walk all the way through, and then it dies and it's done. And they're See You at the Pole is kind of, luckily it's one of those things where youth pastors tend to be involved, and there's more maybe oversight. But in terms of moving out of that and starting maybe your own Bible study and doing things, it's important for you to bring in the younger generation and kind of walk them in, so you have something to hand off, because you're not going to be in high school forever unless you just fail at everything. you might be at high school for a long time, and praise God, you can run a Bible study longer. But no, I think it's important that you pass it on and be willing to bring in the younger crew. And like I said earlier, where I could step in and maybe run it better. You, as a high school student, watching a middle school boy try to lead a prayer, it might be the most painful thing to watch ever, And you almost, as a high schooler, junior, senior, who's maybe running it for the last time, you have a beautiful opportunity to bring in the next crew, and kind of, even if they're not running it or leading it, you could say, hey, I want to bring you in with me. If they're passionate about it and it's something that you feel oh, I see some promise in you, kind of you could walk alongside them and bring them along, and hey, I'm going to maybe give you the reins on this a little bit. I'm a senior. It's the last year. I feel I should run it. I want to run it. And you might have to start handing stuff off to people.
Yeah.
Because eventually they'll have to hopefully do the next, they'll have to do it too. So
Yeah, I think See You at the Pole is also just a great opportunity to open the door for like your youth group in your church and overall just like getting God and getting our faith into the schools and just showing them that like it's not a bad thing. Like we're here to serve, we're here to love. Like that is so important, and this is just a great starting point.
I will say this, I know that I've seen students in leadership today that would never be where they are if they didn't have a moment like that, where an older student said, hey, I want you to lead this one prayer. And they're like, wow, you saw something in me to call that out in me. I mean, I think about evangelists that are traveling today. They had those moments where a youth pastor or somebody that was older than them called something out of them or saw something inside of them. And so I think that's really powerful. As far as the post See You at the Pole, okay, I want to talk about this because I've been at See You at the Poles growing up, and I don't know if you've ever been at a See You at the Pole where people are like, hey, Joey, and you're like, you're in the middle of a prayer, and you're like, hey, you know what I'm talking about? And they're like, what were you guys doing out there? Have you guys ever had those conversations where people are like, what was just happening? What do you say in those moments, right? When people are like, what were you just doing? Why were you guys out there at the pole?
Honestly, that's one of my favorite parts about See You at the Pole is it is such a great conversation starter. Like, you get a bunch of teenagers and some adults standing around a flagpole in the morning. Like, everybody wants to know what's up. So, like, it's a great way to just start and be like, yeah, we were gathering to pray. We were gathering because this is something that we believe in. Can I tell you about it? Like, it's a really good starting point for those conversations.
That's powerful. I love how you're like, yes, I'm so bold. I'm running after this. I was like, the kid was like, yeah, we were just praying.
Have a donut. Eat a donut.
We're eating donuts at the pole, you know, because it can be awkward. Chris, all right, you've had probably some of those conversations.
I always try to pull in like whoever's in my youth group that I know, and I'm like, hey, sometimes like, I coached for a couple years, so I recognize some of the kids, or if I'm in the school, I recognize some students that I've seen before and met and hung out with, and like especially the younger crew, like middle schoolers, you'll find more often to like show up because they see something happening and they're like, oh, I gotta go check it out. High schoolers like maybe have seen it before or maybe know what's happening, but I think there's a beauty in being able to share maybe what's on your heart and maybe what you're doing, and it opens the door for you to say like, hey, this is like, I'm a Christ follower, like this is who I am, and yeah, we're praying, and this is what it is. This is what we do. Yeah. And it kind of, like you said, it's like it opens a door for you to share the gospel. It opens the door for you maybe to open a relationship, because it might just be what was going on there. And then that's all you need to start the relationship. You never know what might happen out of that. Like that person might come back years later and say, like, I remember you saying that you were a Christ follower. I knew that you were a Christ follower. And I think as I've grown in ministry, as I've spent more years, I used to think like I'm doing nothing, you know, and you like look around and like, what's this for? And then as time goes on, you see people come back, they're 20, 21, and they're like, I knew that I could come to you, or I saw the way that you lived your life and I wanted a part of it. Cool. And so it kind of opens the door for you to just be open about your faith. Like, this is who I am. I'm a Christ follower. And it may not mean anything in that moment, but that person, if something starts to go haywire, or things aren't working out the way, or parents are divorced, or dealing with depression, anxiety, whatever, they know they can go to somebody that's like, if I got nothing left to do, I'm going to go talk to this person because he or she had something that I wish I had. Yeah. And they seem so joyful, and they have a community and all these things all the beautiful things about what being a Christian is, you know. Yep. So
I think follow-up is just so important too. Like, you get the opportunity through See You at the Pole to make these connections with these kids and to share a little bit of the gospel, but if you can't just drop them after that. Like, you just have to keep following up. You have to keep caring, and you have to keep loving on them, because that's what we're called to do.
So let's talk about the follow-up, because when I meet with students, one of the things I love at the end of a See You at the Pole is that they just say, hey, if you're here and you're not connected to like a youth group, or, you know, you don't have a place that you worship, like, here's some different places that are represented here. And just to share those opportunities for kids to step into a youth group or some kind of a church situation that they haven't maybe had in the past. I also recommend, like, hey, if anyone's got an FCA or Bible study going, like, promote it, right? Say, hey, here's an opportunity where you can grow in your faith if you want to do that. Here's some different ones that are happening at our school. So as we talk about the postpart of See You at the Pole, my question for you guys, and I don't want to sound off or rude with this, how do you be a kid or a student that doesn't just show up to a flagpole and pray for students, but actively be a believer after that point? Like, not just being a believer who's in a routine of like, this is what the Christian kid would do, but how do you then live it out every single day after that, even if you're not a part of a Bible study?
So I think the easiest way to do that is honestly just to walk in love. Like, if you see the kids that you made connections with, just saying, hey, how's your day going? Like, is there anything that I can pray for you for today? Like, just simple stuff like that. Like, making sure that you are being intentional about that relationship, I think, is one of the biggest things.
I think that's an interesting question, because that's kind of the battle that you find most students in is, I'm a come to the big event guy. I'm a Creaster, or whatever they call them. Christmas and Easter.
Oh,
What do they call it?
I've never heard that.
You never heard that?
never heard that, nope.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it from now
There's
on.
a name for it, but it's like,
I thought you said greaser.
it's like, I'm a greaser, baby. Yeah, no.
I got you.
No, there's like, I think that's a challenge for being a youth pastor, looking and seeing how, like, my dream would be that a student would come to an event and then that would spark something in them to build the spiritual disciplines, the little things that are going to help them become a Christ follower in the long term. And I think it's hard for me as a leader to say, like, yeah, we're going to do this big event. We're going to run See You at the Pole. And it is hard to watch because you know that there's going to be students there that are going to show up for See You at the Pole, and then you'll never see them again. And it brings me back to what I said earlier about, like, trusting that what you're doing doesn't return void, like that it's going to be doing something, that God is going to open the door maybe later on. But it is like, that's the challenge I feel like as a youth pastor, is to, how do I get my students to be as passionate about the Lord as I am? When I was in high school, I didn't read the Bible at all. Like, I didn't care. I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
Grew up in church. I knew how to act. I knew what to do. Like, I could go to church and look like a really good Christian boy. And it wasn't until I graduated and went to Heartland that, like, I really took it serious and said, like, I'm going to be a Christ follower. And now, even at 25, it's like I'm finally getting a good spiritual disciplines where, like, I'm praying every day, I'm reading my Bible every day. And I think we tend to look and say, like, I want to be. There's this guy in our church, his name is Jack Norwood, and he knows scripture like crazy. He just quotes scripture all the time. And I admired that, and I thought, man, I want to be like Jack. And I had to stop and remind myself, it took Jack 85 years of, like, digging into the word and being consistent in his faith and his walk to get to a point where he's, like, quoting scripture that, you're like, where'd you pull that from? I don't know. Like, I don't know. And that is the challenge, in, like, being okay with maybe knowing that this is going to be a long process for some people. And if you talk to any Christian, anybody who's an older generation, they had their moments in life where it was like, it didn't go so great. And yeah, it's a tough question, because you want kids to step in, and you want to build as many bridges for them to get to a point where they can, next week we're starting a Bible study, and now we're going to go and we're going to read through Matthew chapter 1, and then we're going to read through, like, that's what you wish would happen. And sometimes it doesn't happen, and you guys have to trust, like, I'm going to trust that the Holy Spirit is doing a good thing, and he's working in this student's life, and be okay with, like, it might take them a little while to get where they need to go.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the answer you wanted to hear, but that's what I've seen as a youth pastor. Like, I have to be okay with letting this be a long thing. Like, it's going to be the journey for them for the rest of their life. You know, it's not just this one moment, but it's how we're going to continue to grow throughout that. So
yeah, and I think from a student perspective also, like, repetition is something that is necessary. Like we hear in youth alive training, like at camp, like there are so many stories of people asking over and over and over again, like, will you come to youth group with me? Will you come to this Bible study? Will you give this a try? And you're gonna get no. Like, that's just the reality of it, because we live in a broken world. But every time you get a yes, like, that is a celebration in heaven. Like,
It is.
And it's so worth it. Like, those no's are just bumps in the road. Like, it is so worth it.
That's cool. I love what both of you guys are saying. I think that See You at the Pole is a launching point for students. It's a beginning to the rest of the year, and it sets a tone. It sets your pace for that year, and it says, "Hey, I'm gonna be obedient, and I'm gonna step out this year. I'm gonna come to See You at the Pole." You may not lead See You at the Pole, but attending at the See You at the Pole is huge, because there are people leading it who are praying for people to show up, right? And so maybe it's just, I'm gonna wake up early this morning. I'm gonna get myself there, and by doing that, you're putting yourself in a position that says, "God, I want you to use me this year in whatever way that is, whether it's to deepen my spiritual disciplines and take me deeper into my faith and deeper into the Word of God, or whether that's being a person that's saying, I want to be open to the Holy Spirit and is leading every single day to just look around the room and say, God, who can I talk to? Who can I pray for? It doesn't have to be a public prayer. It could be just a personal prayer inside of you that says, hey, I need to reach out to this person. And sometimes I know this seems weird, but sometimes a person will just pop in my head. And I'll be like, I'll shoot him a text and be like, hey, how are you doing? And I've honestly just started to be like, hey, I don't know why you popped in my head today. I don't know if the Lord wanted me to text you or not, but I'm just checking in and saying hi. Mm-hmm. And honestly, the fact that I just bring, like, I don't know if it's the Lord or not, they're like, oh my goodness, it's totally the Lord, right? It like opens up their eyes to something. They're like, wait, the Lord wanted you to maybe say hi to me today? Like, that's cool that he sees me. And so.
Could I add something?
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, back when I had first started, Terry Parkman had shared how like we could use, like we planned for these big events, and for whatever reason we tend to just treat it like this is it. This is the big event. And like if you're a student leader, if you're maybe leading your See You at the Pole at your school, you could also add into the idea of how can this be a launching point, right? Like we treat it as a launching point, but what do we do after?
Yeah.
Like where is the launching, what are we launching to? Like we have this big event, and sometimes it just turns into like, we got this awesome build up for this one event. Mm-hmm. And then you just crash and burn. You're like, thank goodness this is over. Like I've been working so hard. I can't wait for it to be over. And it's like, sometimes you need to even work a little bit harder and say, next week we're starting this. Yeah. It's really easy when you have a launching point for them to go to. And it is easy to stop and be like, oh, we did this, a cool event. We did our See at the Pole, and now we're good till next year. Like we don't have to worry about it till next year. And I love when Terry shared that. Like I always think about whenever I'm leading up to an event, am I leading up to the event, or am I leading to what that's going to bring? And am I ready for what that might bring? Yeah. And you want to be ready to and prepared to, like, oh, we might have we're going to have a Bible study tomorrow. Yeah. And you can be there at 7:30, and this is what we're going to do, and this is what it's going to look like. And we're going to do it weekly. Like there's some things that you can kind of launch into instead of just treating it like, we're going to See You at the Pole, and like, thank goodness that's over. Like, I worked so hard, and I'm so glad everything went off without a hitch. And it's like, now we got to keep going. Now we got to keep pressing.
I'm actually going to steal your illustration, but like we go to like events like the big events that you're talking about, like See You at the Pole or going to camp or NYC or things like that, and we get so filled that we're on this like spiritual high, and then we come home, and if we lose that momentum, it's like we're trying to go upstairs, but we're going all the way back down every time, and we're relying on those big events to just boost us, when in reality those big events should just be one step further and just continuing to grow that momentum. And I think See You at the Pole is a really, really great way to do that.
Yeah, that's amazing, guys. I'm excited for See You at the Pole this year. I feel like students' hearts are stirring in a way like never before. I feel like we're in a culture right now where it's like, let's be bold for what you believe in. Let's be bold about what your opinions are. And as believers, we shouldn't lack any of that boldness because we have the truth that gives people hope every single day of their lives and can save them. So I love that. All right. So we're going to do a quick Q&A here. We do a quick fun. All right. It's fun Q&A. All right. So I'm going to ask random questions because I was in a conversation with some youth pastors, and I just want to know some like routines of your everyday life. Are you ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So first question is this. How many times a day do you brush your teeth?
At least 2.
At least 2?
At least 2.
I brush my teeth every day, no matter what.
So
But
you're saying
sometimes-
like once a day?
Once a day, sometimes it's always in the morning. It's always in the morning, but like sometimes if I have a bag of Doritos or if I eat something a little bit raunchy at the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of gross, so I'm gonna go and brush. I'm not super regular in the evening, but more than likely I'm gonna brush twice a day.
Okay.
But it's kind of in the middle. It's like sometimes depends on what I ate that day.
So
Alright.
weirdly, one of my like biggest insecurities is like having something in my teeth. So actually for ninth grade year, I kept a toothbrush and toothpaste in my backpack because I was so paranoid about it.
Wow. Next level right there. What are you doing? I
level.
just get my toothbrush out really quick before class. All right. Okay. Second question is this. What is your go-to snack? Like it's your indulgent snack. Not healthy. It's like your...
I am called, in my family, I'm called Uncle Chip. With my niece and nephew, I love chips like you wouldn't believe. I could eat a whole bag of chips.
Okay, what's your favorite chip?
That's kind of a tough call. I'm in the Dorito category, but it changes. Sometimes, like it used to be Cool Ranch, it's not Cool Ranch anymore. It used to be Spicy Nacho.
Okay, no.
I love Spicy Nacho. Like
I like the Asian ones, whatever they're called. The purple bag.
The chili ones?
the sweet spicy.
Oh, I love those. They're
That's
so good.
that's kind of I'm on the spicy nacho or this sweet and spicy purple bag.
Yep.
So
Okay.
that's kind of my little Uncle Chip. I thought it'd be
I'm
funny.
going to call you Uncle Chip from now on.
A lot of people do. I thought it'd be funny though. Like my nephew gets to be like 15, and then someone calls me Chris, and he's like, "What's that?" You know, I'm playing
that?
like a long joke here. I'm trying to. Like I just want him to think my name is Chip, and then one day he'll find out it's Chris and be like, "I never knew that." So it's got double purpose. Like I love
good.
chips, but I
That's
just want to make I'm trying to do like a long game joke here. See if
That's
it
good.
works. Probably not, but
Okay,
pretty
Leah, what's your stack?
Oh, that's tough. I would probably have to say pretzels. I'm a sucker for like
That's unhealthy?
just regular pretzels.
Oh my gosh. Pretzels are healthy.
disgusting. Are you
Chris
kidding
over
me?
there like, that's like saying apples.
Like the dot. They're not called dots. What
The
are them?
dots are good.
Are they
Dots
called
are very
dots?
good. Yeah.
There's another brand that my kids like.
There's
that's
another
better.
brand that they like.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
better. You said.
So it's way better. It's way better than dots. Shh.
How about you, Kelly? What's your favorite?
Oh, okay. I am definitely like not a sweet. I love sweets, but if you were like, what is your snack? Oh, it would be like cheese curds or like mozzarella sticks. Sometimes fried macaroni and cheese. Have you ever had that? That used to be my go-to in high school. Third one is this. This is a random question, and this comes from my youth pastor one. How often do you wash your sheets? He was a part of this conversation. So, Leah,
Oh, that's right. I was.
your bed sheets.
Um,
Do you wash your bed sheets, Leah?
I am gonna show my true teenager self. Not very often. Not as often as I should. I don't know, maybe like once a month, which is not great. Maybe
What do you
Once
think?
every 2 months.
What do you think it should be?
like every couple of weeks.
Okay. I just want to know. Okay, Chris, what's your answer on this? Are you not wanting to answer?
I'll answer. I got
Okay.
no-
Do you
I got
even
nothing
have
to
sheets
hide.
on your bed?
I sleep. I don't understand how people sleep with like comforters and like everything. You kidding me? That's like that's got to be the most uncomfortable. I sleep with one pillow and one blanket, and the blanket's too small for me. My mom bought it for me when I was like 16 or 17. I literally had to like turn the corner and like I go corner to corner. But
Someone needs to buy Chris a new blanket for his bed.
no way. I like that blanket. It's great. And I wash my sheets probably once every 2 weeks. Like I'm a pretty clean guy though,
That's
so I'm
good.
like, and I got to do my own laundry. So that's pretty impressive that I'm
That is
even doing it.
impressive. That is
Yeah.
impressive, right? Yeah. Mine is like every 3-4 weeks. I'm not very good on it because I'm just like once the bed feels like worn, Does that make sense?
I know what you're saying.
And then you're like, I need to freshen and crisp up the bed. So,
You're like kind of just a little crummy right now.
all right, last one for you guys is this. Favorite book of the Bible? We're going to bring you back to Jesus here.
That's hard. So I'm actually going through reading the Bible cover to cover right now. So I always joke, don't spoil the ending. I do know the ending, but I guess I would have to say, the Proverbs are just classic. Like, they're just classic wisdom. Otherwise, Hebrews has always been a pretty good one in my book.
I kind of have a favorite as I'm going through it, or maybe whatever season that I'm in.
Yeah.
And like I'm sure you can attest to, like, as you just kind of keep reading the Bible throughout your life, and so you kind of sometimes some books speak more to you than others. Right now, like, I'm really loving the Psalms. For whatever reason, like, usually you'll think of the Psalms, you're like, this is just some weird poetry kind of, and sometimes it is, but there is, for me in this season right now, I've really loved the Psalms. Other than that, it's like any of the letters that Paul writes to any of the churches are always really solid, and every time I read them, I get something new, But I'm kind of loving Psalms.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for this podcast. Absolutely. It's been fun. Leah, it's been so great to see you grow and continue to see you reach in 3 years in your faith, right?
Wow.
And just see you lead through at the pole this year, equipping other students to lead through at the pole. I love that. I'm so excited to see how God continues to use you this year. Chris, it's been so fun to see you grow as a youth pastor and just encourage students to step out and lead them and encourage them. And students, wherever you are across the state, whether you have a youth pastor, whether you are in your school by yourself leading through at the pole, we would love to be a resource for you. So if there's anything Youth Alive can help you with, you have our information, you can find it. Share what God does at your school for CU at the Pole. And we are looking forward to hear from you the week of September 27th. We'll see you guys later. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Minnesota Youth Alive podcast. Remember, you can download the Minnesota Youth Alive app and check us out on Instagram and Facebook for updates and information.